Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Woodburn Accountants and Advisors February webinar series, all about getting ahead of the growth opportunity in China. Now, my philosophy is that if you're looking to scale up and grow in the Chinese market, then you need to get ahead of this growth opportunity that exists there. And in order to do that, you have to prepare yourself. So this February webinar series is all about how you can prepare yourself for different aspects of getting into the market, whether it's protecting your brand, incorporating your entity, being able to communicate with your Chinese accountant, understanding how to hire, find your first employees, and then understanding also how to choose people and appoint people within your corporate management system. Creating a sound foundation for your China business is of vital importance. So this preparation work, this homework that you have to do prior to that is what is going to get you ahead of that growth opportunity. Now, just a couple of technical slides, how the webinar works. We teach, we're here to educate you. We're here to share our experiences with you. If you've got any questions at any point in time, please insert them into the question section of the control panel or the chat section of the control panel. We will have a Q&A and we will get through all of the answers and questions at that point. We will stay on until every question has been answered. This is your time spent, so please do use it wisely. And if you're watching this on replay, then don't hesitate to reach out if you've got any questions. We are using Zoom meetings, so if you run into any issues, please log off, log back on, and then hopefully you'll have a sound, stable system. If anything happens on my end, it usually takes about 60 seconds to 2 minutes for me to reboot, and I will then come back on to finish today's presentation. Now, the webinar is really for you if you're a newbie to China or if you're a startup in China. So if you found opportunities in China that are really interesting to you and you're looking to get a China education on how to actually enter the market, what are the fundamental aspects you need to consider, then this is really a webinar series for you. If you're also a startup in China and you have been transacting for a period of 1 to 3 years and you're trying to get an understanding of whether it makes sense for you to have an on-the-ground structure or even headcount, then again, this is a webinar for you. So if you could let me know who you are in the chat box. Are you a newbie? Are you a startup? Where are you standing today? That would be of great help for me to also understand who the audience is today. Now, how the webinar is working is we've got 5 sessions over 5 days. On Monday, we were talking about how to save your brand in China. On Tuesday, we were talking about the China incorporation blueprint. And today we're talking about how to start your business with your China accountant. If you're interested in Thursday and Friday sessions, you can go to woodburnglobal.com/events to register for those. But all of these sessions are really there to, again, prepare you to create a sound foundation for the Chinese market. So your China expert for the week is myself. My name is Christina Kohler-Palucci. I'm the head of business advisory at Woodburn Accountants and Advisors. I have 17 to 18 years of experience in corporate services and corporate compliance in China. And I've worked with over 500 companies across all industries and sectors on their market strategy, their market entry, their implementation of the business models they choose, and then focusing fundamentally on the growth and scale of these companies in China. One of the beauties over the last 18 years that I've seen personally is that China has created processes or standard operating procedures with a lot of fundamental administrative aspects related to running a business in China. And that's the whole point of this webinar series, is to give you those standard operating procedures on how things work and making sure that you actually implement them yourself. If you haven't received a copy of our ebook, this is a book I wrote a couple of years ago about the 10 biggest mistakes companies make in China. I am planning on expanding on that for 2022. But if you'd like to receive a copy, you can email me at christina@woodburnglobal.com. Now, let's start off with today's presentation, which is how to start your business with your China accountant, okay? And I always like to start off with the pain points. All right, so what are the pain points for foreign investors as they are communicating or working with accountants in China? There are 4 things for me that come into the picture. One is a lack of transparency. 2 is a lack of understanding and language capabilities. 3 is a lack of communication. And 4 is spending more money on less quality compared to your own home jurisdiction's finance team. So it means you haven't created a proper budget to have an appropriate accountant on hand that can really help you to scale up your business. These 4 things are, for me, really the true pain points that a lot of foreign investors struggle with. And again, I'm here to help you to avoid these different pain points. So when people go into China, I always say there are 2 things you need to focus on. 1 is financial resources, and 2 is your time resources. Then, as they are starting to implement their business models, I start asking this question: how much value do you place on your finance team? Now, for a lot of entrepreneurs, small, medium-sized companies, this question doesn't even come into consideration. For companies that are more well-established and have a global presence, meaning that they are in more than just 5 countries, they will naturally place more value in their finance team because they're being forced to, because there are operating procedures in place by the headquarters where they are required to communicate with the finance team in the head office about what is happening in all of the international locations that they've expanded to. But for those that aren't necessarily globally represented, you might find that the finance team in the HQ is naive, is innocent, is less experienced with international expansion. So the whole value goes down. I just want to say that when you're talking about China, and due to the speed of the Chinese market, you need to place a lot of value in your finance team. In fact, your finance person that is responsible for the China business should be your right-hand person in helping you to make decisions and helping you to steer the ship in the right direction. And this is pertinent also to those well-established businesses that have been around for hundreds of years that are expanding into China. Initially, you may not be placing a lot of emphasis on finance. This is a key role that you need in your team. So I want to start off with, what should a Chinese accountant be doing for you? Because I'm hoping that by explaining this part, you will understand how vital they are to your business. Now, I just want to emphasize here that when you look at these types of responsibilities and these action points that these accountants should be doing for you, you might say, oh, well, my HQ accountant is doing this work. That's fine. As long as that HQ accountant has experience with China, has an understanding of PRC GAAP, which is the Chinese GAAP system, has an understanding of the VAT system, has an understanding of all of these tax components, by all means, I have no issues with this. In fact, I love it when the HQ accountant has China experience. All right. But if they don't have experience, then this is where you need to start analyzing, who do we need that does have that experience? And when I say Chinese accountant, you can hire somebody in-house or you can outsource it to a provider who has this type of experience. But this is basically the job description, right? The next couple of slides will be the job description. So first, you put the startup process, all right? You need an accountant to be able to advise to you on the best business structure currently for your business. So when you're talking to lawyers, by all means, talk to lawyers, but also talk to finance individuals, accountants who can, brainstorm and give you the tax side of things when thinking about the business structure. They should be assisting with the financial analysis in your business plan, all right? It's great talking to an HQ accountant who's going to verify and validate your business plan and your budget. But ultimately, you also want to talk to a Chinese accountant who's familiar with all of the tax components and everything to make sure that you have a sound business plan and budget on hand. You need somebody to give you advice on the type of accounting software system you might need in China. Not all accounting software systems are affordable initially in the startup phase and might not be applicable to the business that you're developing on the ground. All right. You want this person also to assist you with the business bank account. First of all, what bank are you going to work with? What type of accounts are you going to set up? What type of credit facilities might you need? You have to talk about all of these things with somebody who's got the experience. A lot of lawyers in China do not have as part of their incorporation setup opening a bank account. They leave that separately to you. So you need to have an accountant who can give you that advice. You also want to make sure that you're creating accounting procedures internally from day one that are government regulated and that fit the requirements. So ultimately what I mean by this is creating standard operating procedures in terms of approving bank transfers, utilizing company CHOPS, collecting all FAPIAOs, which is official invoices. How do you do that? Keeping track of existing FAPIAOs that haven't been issued. Where is that kept? Where are licenses kept? Who has authority over bank accounts? These are all the accounting procedures that you need to create from day one of your business. And ideally, you want an accountant to be able to do that for you and give you their experience on what works and what doesn't. Excuse me. In addition to that, you need to find out systems on how to track expenses for your daily activities. How are you going to track FAPIAOs? What type of allowances are you going to be providing to employees? Do those allowances make sense for your business? Okay. And most importantly, separating personal and business expenses, which for many leaders and entrepreneurs that are starting up in China, this is always muddled together. Okay. But you need to be able to separate those because ultimately you want your accountant to be able to provide to you comparisons year on year that exclude your personal expenses. All right, so this is just the startup phase of what their job description will look like. The next one is regular business operations. So once the company is established, right, what is this accountant going to be doing? Where they're going to be there to ensure that your independent contractors are classified and not employees. So are they businesses in China? Are they able to issue the right VAT invoices? Your accountant is going to be communicating with their accountant to make sure that all of the documentation related to the transactions are there. They're going to be issuing VAT sales invoices. They're going to be calculating the VAT payables. They're going to be explaining your financial statements so you can understand the ins and outs of your business. We just did that actually at the end of last week with a new client where we went through every single line item that was booked in for January to be able to give them clarity over how things are booked in China and whether any adjustments should be made. This is what should be doing on a monthly basis, literally going through every single line item. You need the person to oversee company payroll and payment processes. That includes social insurance, housing funds, individual income tax, allowances. If employees are getting allowances, they should be providing advice on tax payments, so that you have a tax plan for the year based on the budget that you've created. Every month, they're going to close out the books, and every year or every quarter period, they'll also close out the books, and then every year they'll close out the books, and they'll be compiling and submitting your taxes financial reports. Something I didn't mention on this slide is that if your HQ is very specific about certain reports that need to be submitted for consolidation purposes, they should also be looking at those reports and completing them for the HQ. There is a lot of critical work that needs to happen in the day-to-day regular business operations of your company. Then you've got the business growth stage, okay? You need your accountant to be able to determine areas of growth, providing insight on inventory management, pricing, cash flow patterns, business financing. Are investors required? They need to provide advice on property leasing, equipment leasing, purchasing. Ideally, you don't want to get audited by the Chinese Tax Bureau. We have been audited by the Chinese Tax Bureau a few years ago. I don't want to say it can be a very painful procedure if you've done something wrong. If you've done everything right, it can actually be a pleasant procedure, and the Chinese Tax Bureau can actually give advice on how to improve things within your organization. But it's just something you want to avoid because actually your mind frame and your focus will be on that versus on the actual business that's happening. So you want your accountant to make sure you're not going to get audited. You want to prepare yourself for year-end audits. You want to create financial forecasts. You might want to do analyses on each product, calculate profit margins. You want to make sure that you're continuously striving to achieve your business goals and your KPIs. And if you're not achieving that based on your budget, why not? You need to get that analytical advice from your finance person. And that finance person will then also manage, your third-party contractors, your in-house team, to also understand why things are not happening the way they should be happening. Okay. If eventually you're trying to acquire investors or you're trying to sell your company, that's also where the accountant is going to come into play. So it is a huge job description. All right. And all of these things I've mentioned, you probably haven't seen them so clearly written down on a piece of paper to really realize how vital this position is and how vital this position is from day one of your business. All right. Now, what should a Chinese accountant do for you? Because ultimately your focus should be on making decisions and actually helping you to grow and scale the business. So for me, your accountant should be helping you to save time and energy and ultimately your sanity. They should almost become a therapist for you to make sure you're going in the right direction. They should be helping you to make real-time decisions so that you're not waiting around because China is fast-paced. You need to make decisions quickly and you need to plan for the future. One thing that COVID has taught me is that you have to pivot. There are going to be circumstances, scenarios that are created either from a political side because regulations change, or from a pandemic side where you've got no control over anything, that you've got to plan for the future and you've got to account for certain scenarios that are going to happen and predict, right, that the change of course that might appear. So your accountant should be helping you to achieve these functions as well. Now, I know it sounds like it's so common sense. Invest in an excellent accountant. Invest in the advisory that an accountant will give you. About 8, 9, 10 years ago, I had a very good friend of mine own a coffee business in China. And he came up to me and he said, Christina, I'm struggling with VAT. Can I invite you for lunch and can we talk about the VAT issues that I'm struggling with? And I said, no problem whatsoever. But I said, you've got an accountant on hand. You've got an in-house accountant that's helping you. Why are they not giving you the advice? And he openly said, well, I couldn't afford one. I couldn't afford an expensive one. So actually I got a graduate who newly graduated, has only got 2 years of work experience. And they're just running the financials of the company, but really I can't go to this person for advice. And I said, what a waste of money. What a waste of money. Why aren't you using that money to outsource the day-to-day grinding work of the accounting and actually save on then hiring somebody who can give you advisory, who can optimize your structure, optimize your tax situation? Now, you can also outsource that to an outsourced provider who will give you that advice. Sometimes it'll be more expensive than actually hiring somebody in-house. So you do have to weigh out the pros and cons of that. But what I want to say is make sure you're investing in excellent accountant. When you're going into the market, make sure you are preparing yourself for having somebody on board that can truly guide you through the numbers of your business and do create scenarios for your business so you know how to move forward. Now, how do you qualify accountants in China? Because obviously, the accounting system and tax system in China is different from the Western world. It has its own unique style to it, I suppose you could say. So how do you qualify accountants in China? What is the skill set that you need from them? So I know this is all going to be very difficult to test if you're not familiar with the accounting and tax system in China. But I just want you to understand that when you're going through interview processes with outsourced providers or with in-house accountants, there are 9 points you should be checking off your list. One is, are they up to date with tax knowledge regarding your industry, regarding your sector, regarding the general tax status in China? So there's certain test questions you can always ask on that. Do they have a business acumen? Meaning, are they just really a numbers person, or are they able to take numbers and put them into the business and guide you with kind of certain strategies on how to improve the efficiency of the business? If they don't have this business acumen where they can take the numbers to then give you strategies, they're useless, right? If they're just numbers and they just want to sit at a desk and plug numbers into reports, that's a junior person. Okay, you need somebody who has that experience to be able to guide you. Do they have presentation prowess? And what do I mean by that is that, are they able to create presentations on a monthly basis for you where they can highlight the significant numbers of the business, but also then highlight things where you have to watch out for, and just put it into a presentation of 10 slides so you don't have to look at the line item by line item numbers in your P&L. Now, initially, you should always be looking at the line items, but eventually you do want your accountant to give you a brief presentation on the status quo, right? What is going well? What is going wrong? What should we be watching out for based on future strategies? Have we developed certain scenarios depending on X, Y, and Z, all right? Do they have technical abilities? Now, by technical abilities, this is really about a network. Do they have a network with tax officers? Do they have a network of other accountants that they can approach for strategies and advice? Do they have a network of customs officers? Do they have a network, I hope you're getting my point, of auditors? If they have their own ecosystem of people in the finance world, that is invaluable, all right? So the technical abilities, they should have their own, which is the up-to-date information, the business acumen, but they should also have this ecosystem of people that they can resort to if they don't know something. Emotional intelligence. Now, a lot of accountants are laid back, not laid back, that's wrong. They're conservative and they're very reactive. They're not proactive individuals. So this is something you also want to test for. You want an accountant who is proactive, who, if they see something suspicious, will raise their hands and say, I got to talk to you immediately. You want somebody who will react at the same speed that you're reacting at, okay? And as I said, speed of the market is fast, so you need an accountant who's going to tell you something straight away and have that emotional intelligence to be able to tell you something. You want an accountant who is direct, who is brash, who is there to save your business and has the same goal in mind of scaling up and growing with you. All right. You don't want somebody who's going to sit there and see something suspicious and tell you 2 months later. Right? There's no point in that. All right. So you do need somebody who's brash, harsh, direct to really help you to grow your business. Doesn't mean they're going to be your friend, because they're not your friend, right? Usually the finance people in a team are hated by everybody because they will block if you're outside of your budget. They're going to be the financial controllers to say, yes, you can do this project. No, you cannot. You've got to eliminate something, whatever, right? They are not there to make friends. So I think you've got to need to understand that from the emotional side of things and give them that freedom to be able to express themselves in that way. They should have internal auditing capabilities, and they should be able to create standard operating procedures, not only within the finance team, but also within the sales team, the supply chain team, the marketing team, etc. Why? Because the finance team is communicating with everybody about everything. They are the central focus and everybody is around them. So they need to be able to audit the various departments. Like I said, it's generally a hated role, but we need to make sure that there are no leakages in the business. And the finance team is usually this person who's going to be doing that. They should have management and leadership strength, but I just want to say that that can only be done if you provide them with that ability to be leaders and to act as managers in order to be able to speak internally with the various departments, but also to co-lead with you in terms of growing and scaling the business. They've got to be proactive in wanting to gain new skills, learn about your business, and they should have good to excellent communication skills. If you cannot communicate with them and you can only do that by email, it's useless. All right, you need to be able to communicate with them. So steps to start your business with your China accountant. All right, step number 1 is create a budget for the China business and set KPI targets. Now, you might not have a Chinese accountant from day 1, but you might have a corporate service provider that is doing the incorporation as well as doing the outsourcing solutions thereafter. Use this corporate service provider to help you to validate your budget and set these KPI targets that would be realistic for the market. You want to be conservative. So although your HQ finance team might be doing these budgets and setting these KPI targets, you should have somebody who validates it. You also want this service provider to help you choose an accounting software system. What system would suit your needs today, in 5 years, 10 years? You want to implement and provide training for the software system. You want a software system, and I don't want to use the word ERP system because, again, you're a startup in China. So ERP systems, when you look at all the modules, might not be what you need from day 1. You certainly need an accounting software system from day 1, all right? Or use the accounting software system of your provider. So you have to know what accounting software systems your provider is going to be using. You then have to create your charts of accounts. So there are going to be standard charts of accounts that every service provider is going to use. Go into details with that. Delve into breaking that down so that you have every single line item split out as you would like it to split out. You need to make a timely decision about whether you're going to create one set of books or do you need 2 sets of books. Now, what do I mean by this? I don't mean about cheating in the accounting system or in the China system, not at all. The first set of books is going to be mandatory. You are going to have a set of books that are according to PRC GAAP. PRC GAAP is fundamentally based around VAT invoicing. So, which can be very different from the accrual accounting system. So VAT invoicing really depends on when have you issued your VAT invoice and when have you received VAT invoices from your suppliers or other third parties. And sometimes they won't match, which means you'll have a skewed set of books that do not show the reality of your business in time, which means you may have to create a second set of books that are based on the traditional accrual accounting system, all right? Which means that you are booking in invoices and accruing invoices based on project timelines or service timelines, right? Or product timelines. So again, this is why we sometimes recommend to clients to have 2 sets of books so that you have true understanding of what is today, but you're also being compliant with the PRC GAAP system. Now, a lot of clients will have the first set of books done in China, but the second set of books might be done in the headquarters, or it might be standard reports that are sent to the China team that are then plugged in by your accountants, all right, to get that true understanding of what is happening. Now, point 6, I've put in what I like in terms of information. This could be very different depending on what business you're in and how you are as a leader in terms of having data at your fingertips. But I've put in what I would recommend. You should obtain weekly bank information. You should understand every Friday, what is your bank balance? What are the payables? What are the receivables? What overseas incoming payments have come in? I haven't added in here what overseas outgoing payments have happened. To have a consolidated idea on a weekly basis of what your banking information is telling you. A lot of people don't know what the bank balances are. They don't even know what money is sitting in the account. So for me, this is vital. At least once a week, every end of week, you should be knowing this information, or at least at the start of the week, you should be knowing this information. Now, of course, every leader is different. And you might say that's the accountant's job to know that. I disagree. In a startup phase, I think it's something that you should be knowing about so that you don't run out of cash and you know exactly how things are being paid for. 7, Set up a meeting if something seems strange to you, i.e. you've not approved a payment, you were unaware of a receivable, or cash is running low. Now, you might read this report, this number 6, this weekly report, and never look at it. I have a lot of clients who do that too. They get the information, but they never open it up. If you don't open it up, how can you query or fix things straight away? So there will be times where I open up my weekly bank statement and I've got no idea about payments that have been received or payments that are, and I don't understand our bank balance. Why is it so low? This is where, and actually this is an automatic thing for me. Every Monday morning, I have a call with my finance person, regardless. Sometimes it's a 5-minute meeting where we just say, hello, how are you? But it's an opportunity for me that's in my calendar to question what I have received on the Friday. And if I am blocked with meetings on the Friday, forces me to at least open it up with them on a Monday to make sure we are all on the same page. So I know it seems strange to set up a meeting, but do it. Because again, when you're in the startup phase, it is critical that the communication with your accountant is there. Okay. And if something is not piquing your interest, you've got to ask about it straight away. You've got to set a certain deadline for the financial management reports. Now, your accountants will be required based on tax deadlines to submit financial management reports. But depending on your HQ criteria, depending on your own criteria, you may have a deadline where you want the reports by the 5th of every month, the 8th of every month, 10th of every month, depending on you. What you should feel happy about is that the financial management reports will be produced on a monthly basis. And it is an opportunity for you to understand the status of your company. Again, you'll get one set of reports according to PRC GAAP, which maybe you won't fully understand because it's very VAT influenced. Or you might get a second set of accounts where it's accrual based that will give you the true understanding of your status. Okay. Now, again, set up a meeting. So I receive the financial management reports. I immediately have a meeting with my finance team in HQ and in China to review them. And there's some months where these meetings can last 90 minutes because literally I go line item by line item. And I do it as a test so that we're all on the same page. We're all clear on what we're actually looking at. All right. In addition to that, we always look at the budget versus the actuals. So where are we struggling? Where do we need to work on more? And we create an action plan that's for the sales team, an action plan that's for our administration team, an action plan that's for marketing team, because we see we're slacking in certain areas. And we do this month to month. Now, why you might be all reading this and seeing this and saying, well, this all makes sense. Of course, we're going to do that. But you don't. You get into China and your focus is so much on sales and revenue, which is top line. You don't focus on the rest. And this is where we need to be focusing on. How are we spending our money? Is somebody controlling the spending of our money? If you're focusing on top line, are you really analyzing what products or services are working and what's not working? Are you making an action plan of potentially removing a service or a product or adding something in? This is the time where it comes to analysis. And analysis will lead you into making decisions for your business and making them at that moment in time so that you have the ability to pivot, right? And there'll be functions that your accountant has to do based on that review. There'll be functions that your sales team has to do, that your BD person has to do, that your marketing team has to do, whomever. All right. And sometimes you'll have to have a follow-up meeting with everybody so that everybody is aligned. Because what you want is no miscommunication between the departments. And I get it. All of this sounds tedious, sounds administrative. But in the end, these calls can sometimes last only 5 minutes because you're all aligned and you're all going in the right direction. Initially, in the chaos of a startup, there is never alignment. And that's where it's really critical. Remember that the whole point of these meetings is to reforecast, amend, review in order to be able to scale up and grow. And like the whole theme of this webinar series is get ahead of that growth opportunity. Now, what I want to mention here is these two slides are very much geared towards your Chinese accountant, meaning that you've got an entity on the ground in China and you've got a Chinese accountant that's running that entity. But all of this work is also critical, even if you're just doing transactions from your head office. So if you are transacting with China, you should have your finance team and your HQ preparing separate China P&Ls so that you have the ability to analyze that business very clearly. And this is something that's sometimes an eye-opener for many people that have never separated China out of their overall P&L, even when they're simply transacting in China. And it's something that I would recommend for everybody to do. And you can follow this same criteria that I've developed here, right? Getting a budget for the China business. Okay, you won't have an accounting software system because you'll use the one in the HQ. You'll have a charts of accounts already there. You'll create one set of books, but the weekly bank information will just be related to the China business. You set up a meeting to review those statements. So you can review the accounts receivables, payables that are all related to China. You put your expenses that are specific to China underneath that. You create a P&L for it, create a balance sheet for it, and you do reviews. This is fundamental for you to making a decision whether you need to have an on-the-ground structure in China or not, whether you've hit certain value trigger points or volume trigger points that will push you to actually have an entity on the ground. So all of this could be applied to even if you're simply transacting with the Chinese market. The next is setting up an action plan of next steps to improve efficiencies and handle cost control. And a lot of that will be stemmed from your accountant creating these efficiencies, creating this cost control. All right. And again, the whole point of these meetings is to discuss problem points. Now, the Chinese hate to lose face. It's very much a cultural issue. Nobody wants to put blame on another person because they're scared of getting in trouble, which is why you need an accountant who's brash, who's forward, who won't be liked by the team to come out with the problem points, the communication points. One thing I am not shy about is if I see that the communication between my client and the HQ and the team on the ground is missing, I will organize on behalf of my client a meeting with everybody because we have to iron out these problems. We have to create efficiencies. And it's not about blaming. There's no blame. It's how can we improve so that we all achieve the same goal of reaching these targets that have been set. Sometimes the HQ is the bottleneck. And again, you need somebody brash to say, hey guys, you're sitting there and you're not giving me feedback timely. I'm not going to reach the targets you've set for me because you're my bottleneck. Somebody has to say it, right? Sometimes it's the accountant and they're not liked, all right? But all of these things have to be discussed in these meetings so that we all achieve the same goals. And this is the culture that should be created within the company in China to talk about these issues. In these meetings, you should always be looking at the future, okay? So I've listed a couple of things here that should always be on the agenda. Growth, investment plans. Are you looking for new investors? Are you looking for new funding? New product lines, new service lines, eliminating product lines, eliminating service lines, cutting costs down. Can you cut costs down? Adding headcount. Where is that headcount going to be sitting? Is it going to be in Shanghai where your office is? Or are they going to be outliers that sit in Guangzhou, Beijing, Chongqing, or wherever else? All right. So, and I'll just say this, in a monthly meeting I had with a client in January, it came out in that meeting because I brought up headcount, where they said, yeah, actually we've got in our plan in the next 3 months to add 3 additional headcounts. And I said, great, where are they going to be based? And that can lead to HR issues if you don't have branch offices set up. So we have to find problems now. Problems. We have to find solutions now on how to hire those people. And of course, the GM is so focused on adding headcount because he wants to achieve XYZ goals. We still need to maintain compliance procedures and corporate governance to make sure the company is doing everything legally. That stems from your accountant. having that experience and giving that advice. All right. So all of these things are really vital. Adding new product lines. If you're in the F&B sector and you're adding a product line, do you need to register that product? Do you have to go through a period of 9 months of registration? Or are you going to do cross-border e-commerce where you don't have to then register? These are all things that will come into that discussion. Everybody needs to be aligned. Okay. And again, when companies come to China and they're in this startup phase, which usually for me is usually the first 3 to 5 years of having an entity on the ground, or not even having an entity on the ground, just transacting with China, transacting with distributors. All of these questions are going to be popping up and you're winging it. You're not planning, you're not preparing, you're not organized. It's probably my German efficiency in that, but you've got to be efficient and organized to preempt all of the problems that could potentially arise. So as I highlighted, you should be speaking to your accountant in China daily, whether it's by email, WeChat, phone call, whatever it might be. They are your right-hand person in the Chinese market. And they are really the ones that are going to help you to create corporate governance and to help you to become efficient so that you grow. So this was a very short presentation today. As usual, I would love to understand what your biggest takeaway was. So if you're watching it live, let me know in the chat box. If you're watching this on replay, also let me know what was your biggest takeaway from today. I'd love to hear from you. How you can work with me, very similar to slide to yesterday. Again, we can act as your outsourced provider for all finance aspects. We can also act as a non-executive director for your China business, which gives you then this type of advisory in relation to finance. We can also then just act as an ongoing basis as an outsourced CFO if needed, or we can physically do the work as well. So it's really pertaining more to this topic today. If you've got any questions, insert them into the chat box. Nothing's popped in. So I'm guessing everything has been very clear and transparent. If you are interested in getting your accounting foundation set up in China, especially if you're a startup and you want to have a review on what you've done, or you actually want to physically get things set up, then don't hesitate to reach out. You can email me at Christina@woodburnglobal.com, and I'd be happy to get on a call with you and discuss further. So this is the end of session 3. If you haven't registered for our next 2 sessions, which is on hiring people, and on Friday it's about corporate management, then register at woodburnglobal.com/events. And Esther, I appreciate your feedback. Thank you very much. It is really important to learn about the active exchange that has to happen. It's definitely a very active exchange. I hope it helped you.
Thank you very much. It's been very good. Thank you.
Thank you, Esther. Take care. Bye.
Bye.